So yesterday's object, we shared the extract from an Education Department draft circular of the introduction of the 11 plus exam in July 1945, that's based at the National Archives. And today's object that we will be speaking about is the Montessori learning toy from the 1920s based at the V&A's Museum of Childhood. I personally didn't like having learning toys in the classroom as a child. It made me feel really different to the rest of the group. I remember having like fake money and wooden blocks to help counting and being removed from my classroom to a separate classroom to play computer games like Number Shark and Nessie, and feeling isolated from my class friends who were learning together in one room and me being separated from them. I also remember feeling really upset that I wasn't allowed to read the Magic Key books like everyone else was allowed to read. I had to read these, what I remember being really tatty and old fairy tale books where I already knew what was going to happen at the end of the story. And I still to this day haven't read a Magic Key book.
Well, I don't even know what a Magic Key book is, so don't worry.
It was kids' book from the 1980s, I think. They just had really nice illustrations. That's what I remember.
Okay, cool. Well, I missed out as well, so don't worry too much. But it's kind of interesting what you said about maybe feeling, different to your peers, because I think that especially when you're a child, school isn't just your place of learning. It's also kind of like the center of your social life and where you'll make a lot of your friends. And feeling socially excluded will massively impact a child's confidence, which would then also have an effect potentially on their education. So I do think it's important to kind of keep those things in mind. Ideally, obviously, it would be good to be able to facilitate different learning styles in one classroom, so like using toys like this. But in practice, in a mainstream school, if you're the only one who's doing something different, then it could serve to socially exclude you, which would have a negative impact. But then it's also interesting to me to think about if you had been attending an alternative school, like a Montessori school, and everyone had been doing that, then obviously you'd probably feel much less conscious of appearing different to your peers. As everyone, obviously, you wouldn't be different, everyone would be doing the same thing. And obviously most of those schools are private schools in the UK, and maybe if we were able to kind of introduce alternative learning methods more widely into mainstream schools, maybe that attitude would shift. I think just also reflecting on yesterday's conversation about selective schools, like, is it possible to create a society and education system where we have children with different needs and different abilities all learning and kind of expressing themselves in their own unique way alongside each other without being judged or kind of like socially ostracized? Is that possible or like realistic?
I would hope so. I still remember the day of the week where I was taken away to play Nessie and Number Shark on Thursday morning.
Yeah, that's kind of a funny one, because on the other hand, if you had a neurodivergent child in the same school, but maybe the teachers weren't aware of them being neurodivergent and they didn't have those things, and they were kind of always wondering like, oh, I can't do certain things that other people around me can do. I'm kind of hypothesizing, so maybe that wouldn't happen. Would that be better or worse? Because it feels like that would also have a negative impact. It's kind of hard to say, but then also you felt that feeling of being different in a negative way, and I don't know, it's almost like weighing up which is better or worse. I don't know if that makes sense, but
definitely children that go through the whole of their education and even into adulthood without knowing that they're neurodivergent.